Kyle Malin. Do you know Lawrence? Do you remember Lawrence Wanke? Yeah, he was at MERS. Did you ever read MERS back in the day, Lawrence? MERS? Do you remember MERS News? Yeah, Kyle was the guy covering you. So, great to have Lawrence Wanke here in the audience. So Lawrence preceded me. We represent a lot of the same district. When I started, it was the same district, and then, that independent redistricting commission, they gerrymandered, and now I don't have the same district, but I still have Lawrence, and it's great to have Lawrence here. So thanks for being here, Lawrence. So this is a little different, but I wanted to first, we'll just go over, I know you guys missed the awards. Look at this. Beautiful award from the National Kidney Foundation of Michigan. Do you see this? And I received their highest award for all the things that I do for kidneys and kidney research and fighting chronic kidney disease. And they gave me their highest award recently. So I just wanted, the media doesn't give me credit for the work that I do. But thankfully, there's the National Kidney Foundation. The media makes me seem like such a horrible guy, but the National Kidney Foundation. So I think it's important to take a moment from all the negative stories you write about me to say, you know what, we are doing good things for people in this job, especially people with kidney disease. So that's a good one. We'll see. So hopefully you guys cover that in your tidbits and your Insider and all of your publications, because that was a big one that I got. And there's a lot more that I got that will showcase, including my Transparency Award from the most reputable transparency organization in Michigan. But there's a lot more. I got one today, which I won't tell you what it was, but we'll bring that in the future. I received the highest award from another organization that does a lot for people's health. There are a few things. Do we have the quad box ready? Over here. Are you going to show it to him? How do you show it to him? This isn't the quad box. This is, all right, guys, this is what we were trying to get rid of. Do you remember this? This is very confusing, and I told you all that I'm changing House TV. As a multi-term speaker, I have the opportunity now to make changes, not just to the partisan part of government, but also to the nonpartisan parts of the House, and so this is what we were trying to change. This is what it used to look like. We don't like this very much. You guys going to change it to the quad box? Look at this. You're not going to believe this when you see it. You guys, hopefully they know how to change the channel. So I'll talk you through this. So I talked about this at the press conference a few weeks ago, and I was mocked, of course, by the press. But ultimately, we're trying to improve House TV. We're trying to create a better user experience for the viewers of House TV. And we're trying to create a great visual for our readers, or our people that watch House TV. And I'll tell you, we have a very ingenuitive staffer that works for me in the IT department, and I brought him in, just like I brought a lot of people into the nonpartisan offices. And what he did was he worked on his own time to build an algorithm to do the quad box, to bring closed captioning to House TV. Look at this, the quad box. Here it is. Isn't it beautiful? And this is a pilot, and you all are going to get quad box very soon. So we started with this pilot. I wanted to show it and debut it here today. But you see this. We can watch more than one committee at once. We have the closed captioning, something they said couldn't be done. We put it in there. You got the closed captioning. And they couldn't even do the closed captioning on one screen. They can do different closed captioning on all 4 screens at once. And then the best part is, you see the timelines? I'm going to smile for this. Anyway, the timelines, look at this. So you know, the Appropriations Subcommittee on State and Local Transportation starts in 27 minutes, 53 seconds. And what happens is when the next committee comes on, it just automatically comes on the screen. It pulls into the screen. So let's say there's 3 committees going on. When the fourth committee starts, it will automatically pull into this screen with a timeline. And so I think this is really going to improve the viewer interface for House TV. Now, the original version of this could have a lot more than 4. It could have 5, it could have 6 screens. I told them to dial it back. I said, we'll start with 4. So I think you could see 4. But if there were 8 screens on here, it'd be a little hard to see the closed captioning. So right now we're going to start with 4. We got this going, you see this. And the key is the closed captioning. I think that's going to be really helpful, not just to our viewers that might have hearing issues, but just if you're trying to watch 4 committees at once, how much nicer is the quad box where you can read it? I think this is much better visually, much better user interface than the first version, where you saw that they have like 80% of the screen is the schedule, and then right in the corner are all the committees, and they don't have closed captions. So we're doing this. It's piloted here. There's a few of the TVs that have it, and we're going to expand this out throughout the House, and everyone will be able to get this very soon. You have a question about the quad box?
So would we be able to get this online?
It will happen, but right now it's just on the internal feeds. We wanted to, we're demoing it, we're piloting it, and then the goal is to get it out there so you could use it. I think this would be helpful, don't you? You had the quad box? So you're on your computer, you're watching one channel, and then you hear, oh man, Speaker Hall showed up in this other committee, you got to switch to the other committee, you might miss the first committee. I mean, could you imagine setting this up in the MERS World headquarters, big screen like this with the quad box? I think it might help you guys, and a lot of you hopefully cover committees. So yeah, this is a reality. I know I was mocked for it, but we have a very ingenuitive staff person in the IT department who on his own time built this algorithm. They said it couldn't be done. I think another state spent over $100,000 to do something like this, and I showed you that video. We had a very ingenuitive government employee that works in IT, that works for me, that I brought in, and he did this on his own time. He built this whole thing. So I just wanted to really compliment the IT department for seeing my vision, making it happen, and this is going to be great for the viewership. So I wanted to give you that update. What do we have going on this screen? Do you know? Are we starting it? You want to start it? The first one said quad box. Oh, I have it? Okay, I'll show you the first one. Quad box. They thought that was funnier than you guys did. Yeah, look at this. That's beautiful, isn't it? So we'll go back to this. So first I want to talk, I'll just start with Selfridge. Obviously we've seen some, I don't know if it's dishonest reporting or if it's just confused reporting, so I wanted to go over the Selfridge issue one more time. We all know that myself and President Trump met with Gretchen Whitmer, the 3 of us. This is that picture. So Gretchen Whitmer and I met with President Trump last year in April to ask for a new fighter mission for Michigan to keep Selfridge Air National Guard Base open for another 40 to 50 years. President Trump in that meeting said he would help us. We then remember when he came to Selfridge, something that's documented here as well as on the wall of the Speaker's Library. President Trump came to Michigan later in April 2025 to commit a new fighter mission, something even better than what we expected. 21 new F-15EXs. Shortly after that, Governor Whitmer went to President Trump and asked him to move up the timeline. She said, we want these fighter missions to arrive, these jets, before you leave office. Will you help us with that? President Trump said, yes, I will help you. And so since then, I've been talking with the Air Force Secretary, and we've been trying to help meet this timeline that President Trump has committed to us, really at the request of Governor Whitmer and myself. which is we must have the new fighter jets on the ground in Michigan before President Trump leaves office. The reason for that is a new president is very likely to reopen this decision, delay it for years and years, and then move the fighter jets somewhere else, all right? Remember, they did not want this. The Air Force did not want this. It took President Trump and Secretary of War Hegseth to override the Air Force to make this happen, all right? So let's remember that. Now, we know in March of 2026, the House Republicans passed a clean supplemental to fund Selfridge. And then two weeks ago, we saw the Senate Democrats pass a supplemental. And I want to kind of try to explain this so that everyone can understand this, all right? So the way that the House supplemental works, number one, there's one thing in it, Selfridge, all right? Number two, the money would be available immediately once signed by the governor, all right? The Senate supplemental, the way it's structured, the money would not become available for the runway construction until October of this year, all right? Now, in order to meet the construction deadline of getting this done, the runways built, and everything else that has to happen by that, after that, in order to get that done, we really needed to begin the construction runway in March, okay? That did not happen. So now we kind of have a drop-dead date of June 1. If we do not begin the construction very quickly after June 1, we have zero chance of building this runway. If we do not build the runway, we are very likely to lose Selfridge. What the Senate Democrats propose is the money does not become available until October, which is what, July, August, September. It's more than 3 months after the absolute drop-dead deadline of when we have to start this construction. So if they start 3 months later, and I want to lay this out, the whole timeline that we're working on would get these fighter mission here, like for the last month, or maybe like November of Trump's last year, maybe December. You know what I mean? So it's a very tight timeline. So if you push the construction out another 3 months until the Senate's money's available, it's not happening. It will not happen. At that point, I would recommend that we do not spend any state money on it, and we just wait for the federal government to do it, and maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But it would make no sense for us to build a runway using our state money and then get the project done after Trump leaves office. That would make that, there's no benefit to the state of Michigan of that, because we would just go back to the other timeline where the federal government paid for the runway, where everything worked through Congress. And this would happen sometime in, the year after Trump leaves or 2 years after Trump leaves, and it'll be subject to another decision by the military, and most people think it won't come to Michigan. So I don't think that the media is reporting that accurately. I think the media is not reporting that, and that is a material fact, all right? The second thing is, I just can't believe. We call it the Lansing two-step, what Kevin Hertel did here. And I'm not even sure I can explain it. It's only a Hertel could come up with such a convoluted voting pattern to try to trick his own voters into thinking that he's supporting them when he's actually harming them. I've never seen anything like it. But essentially, the Senate Republicans tried to help us a couple weeks ago, and they put up an amendment to fund Selfridge clean and to do it under a timeline that would make the critical, what they call Q2 construction deadline, all right? In order to do that, they put forward a clean supplemental that funds it immediately. Now, we know after Hertel votes for this, the Democrats put up an amendment that strips the funding out and puts it back into October, which is way too late. and we saw Kevin Hertel vote for that. He voted to do that. So we were on the right timeline for a moment, and then about a minute later, Kevin Hertel voted to move us off that timeline and do this after our deadline, meaning the mission will not come because the money's not available until October. The money will not be here. We won't make the deadline of getting these planes in November or December of Trump's last year. That's adding another 3-4 months on top of it. It won't work. We're already over the deadline, which was March. March is when we needed to do it to guarantee it. Now, in our conversations with the Air Force, we believe if we go June, we can just barely get it done if everything goes perfectly. If the Senate Democrats and Kevin Hertel get their way and push this funding out, the funding's not available until October, no chance. It's dead. You're very unlikely to get Selfridge at that point. I don't understand why Kevin Hertel is playing these games. And I hope that by kind of explaining this, the media will understand it, because I know it's complicated. But there is a huge material difference between funding this now, before June 1, in a clean supplemental that makes it available, and funding this using funds that are not available until October, meaning we can't begin the construction until sometime after October. And who knows? I don't know. I mean, how many months can you even build it in the wintertime? So that's really important, and I hope we get better coverage of it. And I do appreciate that recently Governor Whitmer, although a little late, did acknowledge the June 1 deadline, which I've been talking about. I've been telling you guys when it was March. I told you when we were able to figure out how to cobble it together in May. But if Kevin Hertel and these Senate Democrats go up to Mackinac Island for their conference without this fixed, they're doing a great disservice to the people of Macomb County and to the state of Michigan, both for our economic activity of over $800 million for Selfridge, but also for the state's security, So I hope we get it done. That's our number one priority, is getting a clean supplemental done for Selfridge, and it has to be done before we go to Mackinac Island. I'll go to that one in a second. So the second one is kind of funny. Where I'm standing, it's kind of hard for me to read, but I'll figure it out. Second thing, just to go over, this is the other one. I'm really grateful for all of the press coverage of some of the pork scandals that we're seeing going on right now. I do think that, a little refresher on heat is needed right now, just as we're covering these stories. We're writing them like a lot of this stuff could continue to happen. And even Dana Nessel admitted, something most of the press won't admit, that the Hall Ethics Accountability and Transparency Plan has been a good reform that came from this. And, I just say I watched a lot of this stuff going on. We saw it going on under other speakers. And when I became speaker, I said, we're going to fix it. I'm going to change it, and I'm going to bring true transparency to the earmark process. So I just want to remind everyone about what HEAT does. Number one, HEAT. All earmarks must be publicly disclosed 45 days before passage. That's important. So now they must disclose them. They must tell us who's asking for the money, who is the beneficiary. You look at these stories, the people whose names are on these documents after the fact are saying they had nothing to do with them. You fix that problem by forcing them to put their name on it 45 days in advance and submit it. Then there's no question who's behind these projects. They have to explain who is a beneficiary, who is receiving this money. In that case, you would know, was it the chamber organization that it was purported to be, or was it some other organization that was created later? That would be disclosed 45 days in advance on the form. Remember, they have to exist for 3 years in order to receive the funding. We looked at that. Isn't that amazing? You have to pass a law that says in order to get government funding, you must exist. But we had to do that because the politicians were coming up with ways. They'd give the money to an organization, and then after the organization received the money, then they would form and the taxpayers would pay the startup costs. That's gone. They must also have a physical presence in Michigan for 1 year. That's a change, and that's important too. Now, you guys know we prevent the corporations from receiving these pork spending items from now on, so you won't have these distilleries that nobody, in the middle of nowhere on some island nobody lives on, and then no one will say who did it, because now you cannot be a for-profit corporation, and someone has to put their name on it 45 days in advance. But there's some other provisions in here that I think are really important. We require early, when they submit the form, the organization has to have a board of directors, and they have to disclose that board of directors when they're putting their form together 45 days before a vote. We know that there's a requirement that there must be a public hearing on every one of these items that make it into a vote. That's a change. We see that the Auditor General now shall evaluate the management of the legislative directed grants as part of the audit process. Before, that was not the case. There were circumstances where we could direct the Auditor General to investigate a certain line, but now that's part of the auditing process, where there's an independent Auditor General that comes in and evaluates the management of these legislative directed grants. We know a lot of the criticism of some of these pork projects. Criticism I share is the management of the legislative directed grants by the MEDC. We're going to learn a lot from the Auditor General's audits and reports on that management. And also, I think with the MEDC knowing that the Auditor General will be looking very carefully at this, it also is an extra check on the MEDC and Leo. We reimburse now. So it used to be, like you look at this one with Fay Dune, they received 50% of the money up front, and then they started spending the money. All right? The new process under HEAT, the Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan, is that the reimbursement occurs after sufficient documentation is provided. So you go out and you make the expenditure, or you go out, you get a quote, you have all the documentation in place, the state government must approve it before any money leaves. That is a change from what happened in the past, where in the past you just give them the money, the Whitmer administration would give them the money, they'd start spending it, and then you'd have to try to stop it somehow, and we saw that that failed. I'd also point out that, let me see here, I had one more. There's also strong rules to prevent conflict of interest for for legislators and staff in these deals. We saw in the past that sometimes staff were involved in these, which we don't want. And so I think overall we're doing a lot to look at what happened in the past and clean it up. And my favorite provision in HEAT, I think, is that the pork spending project must have something to do with the politician's district. I think of everything we did, that closed off the most requests. And that was one, I kind of snuck it in there right at the end and got it in there in the final deal. So, what we were seeing is a politician, maybe it's even a term-limited politician, and they live in, let's say, West Michigan, and they would go and they'd get a pork project for Detroit in the budget. And you say, why is some legislator in West Michigan getting pork in some district in Lansing or in Detroit that doesn't even benefit their district? So we put an end to that practice. Now, if a politician asks for a pork project, it must have something to do with their district. That's a huge change, and it choked off a lot of the pork spending requests. I was really happy about that. And then the other thing that's in there is we require that they state the public purpose. And we saw this very fair judge, Judge Godola, rule yesterday on the case involving the public purpose of some of these pork spending projects, that there may not have been a legitimate public purpose before the 2 baseball stadiums that the Democrats shoved in the budget. So those do not have a public purpose, according to Judge Godola. They have a more limited purpose, and therefore, under Michigan's Constitution, they should have been subject to a higher threshold vote, a 2/3 vote. Now, fortunately, because of the Republicans' vote to stop the work project spending, the baseball stadium in Lansing was already on pause. But you saw this ruling by Judge Godola, a very fair judge, and he's put them on hold again. I guess a second time. That's like double on hold, that Lansing Stadium. But that's why stating the public purpose is so important. As we're going through these requests and we're reading these forms, we're looking at that public purpose. And now that public purpose is even more important than some people saw it was before, because that public purpose is going to determine whether this is subject to a majority vote or whether this is subject to a supermajority vote. So I think that was really critical. So I just wanted to give everyone that refresher on HEAT, the Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan. We had to drag the politicians over the line. It was a really hard vote to get the politicians to relinquish a lot of their control over the secret pork spending and to put their names on the projects. But you know what came out of it? Most of the projects that are being requested now are fairly reasonable. That's what we're seeing now. Where before, most of the projects being requested were outlandish, and most did not have a public benefit. We had all kinds of fraud and abuse and waste. Now, most of the projects are fairly reasonable. And I understand in a weaponized government why a local legislator might need the ability to fund a local bridge or a local road. I mean, you know, maybe the governor won't do it because the governor doesn't like the legislator. And that's why you need a process where a local legislator can stand up for their community and get that local bridge funded. But not baseball stadiums, not hip-hop academies, not splash pads, not all the waste, fraud, and abuse we had before. So, you know, this is a big one. I won a transparency award for this, and hopefully the media will cover this as much as they're covering Faye Dune. I don't know, I don't think I have anything else. I've got a lot of things, but, I'm gonna go through the budget quotes because you guys need to see this. Is there a way for me to read this, Gideon, or do I have to step in front of the podium? Oh, do I? Okay. These are just coming in. It's unbelievable. Is the county roads on here? Or? Okay. Well, I'll go to that one. That's let me see here. Look at this. These are some new ones. Look at this. Amanda Fisher, highly respected from NFIB. I think I have more than you do. We are heartened to see that the work started in last year's budget of ferreting out waste and streamlining government services has continued. We appreciate Speaker Hall and House Appropriations Chair Boland's commitment to fiscal stewardship of taxpayer dollars and support their continued efforts to appropriately balance the needed services provided by state government with taxpayer accountability. And this next paragraph is really important. This is in sharp contrast to budgets put forth by the governor and the state senate that increase spending through taxes, fees, and raiding the rainy day fund. It is important for all lawmakers to remember that the dollars they are spending are those that were earned by the hardworking citizens, including small businesses of Michigan. Every dollar they spend comes out of taxpayers' pockets. You know, we should like put that above the halls of the House chamber. Every dollar they spend comes out of taxpayers' pockets because the politicians, they forget that when they're up here and they're giving that money to their donors and to baseball stadiums and hip-hop academies and Zen centers and puppet art and all the waste. Every dollar they spend comes out of taxpayers' pockets. Amanda Fisher, and it gets it right at NFIB. And we know NFIB is highly respected voice of small businesses, so she's right on the money there. Where's the, maybe you don't have it on here. Do you have the other one, Gideon? Can you give it to me? We have a lot of quotes coming in. Now, I know the County Road Association is very supportive of our budget, and they have a great lobbyist, and I don't say that very often, but they do. There's maybe 5 great lobbyists, and the rest I wouldn't want to be anywhere near. But there are probably 5 great lobbyists, and one of them is Ed Noyola, who represents the County Road Association. And the County Road Association is highly respected, and they were partners of ours as we were making the biggest roads deal in Michigan's history. Now, I'm trying to wake up MIDA. Do you guys know MIDA? I'm trying to wake them up because I don't think they know yet that we put more permanent funding in our budget for roads. And I know they're very happy. They're probably very happy about their, I made the biggest roads deal in Michigan's history. But what I want to remind MIDA of is our job is not done. We want to continue to fund the roads every year. And I know that, they've been involved in this model that basically we don't do anything for 10 years, and then on the 10th year, we do all kinds of crazy things to bring the road funding back to where it should be. What I know Ed Noyola, the County Road Association, and myself, what we're working on is we're trying to go, what if we do a little bit every year over those 10 years? Then we'll never have another funding cliff again. So every year, we try to put in a few $100 million, we dedicate it permanently, and we keep adding to it, and we do it that way. Every time we find another 200 million or 100 million of waste, fraud, and abuse, we permanently dedicate it to roads because our job isn't done. Just because we did $2 billion in the greatest roads deal of all time permanently, we got to keep doing it each year and keep adding to it. And I know Ed Noyola and the County Road Association get that, and the House Republicans get that. And I think when MIDA wakes up, they'll get it too. Do you got it, Gideon? All right, let me see here. You got it? Why don't you just read it? I don't know. This is what took so long. We had some, why don't you bring it to me and I'll read it? Or do you guys know Gideon? You want to come on screen, Gideon?
I don't. That's all right.
Ed's going to be happy he gave us this quote. This is Gideon, by the way. Long tenured guy. All 83 members of the County Road Association greatly appreciate the House's continued focus on resources for Michigan roads. And that came from the County Road Association, highly respected CEO, Denise Donahue. That's beautiful. So thank you for that, Gideon. Anyway, so the endorsements keep rolling in, and we got a lot more. I've got videos of very reputable organizations, after school programs endorsing the House budget that the House Republicans did. We know, where's the Food Bank Council? They're on here. Well, we know Michigan Works. We know the Michigan Association of Ambulance Services, highly respected. The Michigan Manufacturers Association. This one, the Food Bank Council of Michigan, which has given me their highest award this year. They express their appreciation to the Michigan House of Representatives and its leadership for their continued trust in the work of the state's food banks and their commitment to supporting families facing hunger. This program creates dependable secondary markets for Michigan farmers and producers while delivering fresh, nutritious food to families navigating rising costs and tighter budgets. This is what smart, effective policy looks like. That's from Phil Knight from the Food Bank Council of Michigan, highly respected. So remember, with our budget, what's really important, we get rid of the 3,327 ghost employees. We went to real dollars spent in every line item. And if we go to real dollars spent rather than fake budgeting amounts, we can save the taxpayers $2 billion a year. We can invest in our state rainy day fund. We can invest more in roads, which the County Road Association gets. We can invest more in education, public safety, and local governments. We don't have to raise taxes. We don't have to raid the rainy day fund. We can actually invest more in the rainy day fund All we got to do is cut the waste, fraud, and abuse and go to the real dollar spent. So I'll stop there. I don't know if we have any questions.
Where are you guys at as far as negotiations with the Senate, the governor on the budget?
Well, we're focusing on negotiations on a clean supplemental, which we've got to get done before Mackinac, and we're not letting those other things distract us. So we're working on a clean supplemental. That's our focus. We're trying to get that done before we go to Mackinac.
Have you talked with the governor and Senate Majority Leader yet on these issues?
Right now, there's conversations going on. I've talked to the governor, and there's conversations going on with our staff. They're working through the details. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there room to negotiate on that as the Senate has put forward a supplemental with an extra in it, and the state budget office has also asked for more in a supplemental? Does it have to be clean, or are you willing to negotiate on that?
Well, I would say the most important thing is that it happens immediately. So the first thing we have to do is we have to stop the Senate Democrats from using funds that are tied up until October. So I'd say that's the most important part of the negotiation. The Democrats want to basically take funding that's over budgeted now, wait for it to expire in October, and then when it becomes available in October, then fund a Selfridge runway. And in the negotiation, that is the number one most unacceptable position of the Senate Democrats, because we will miss the timeline. At that point, we're just going to have to give up on a fighter mission. So this is a very serious situation, and that's why the most important thing in the negotiation is for Kevin Hertel and the Democrats to stop their objection to using money that's available now, that we can put forward to begin the construction immediately, to barely squeeze this thing in before President Trump leaves office, guaranteeing the fighter mission. So that's the number one point of contention in the negotiation. In terms of adding stuff, those are things that are being talked about, but my ask is that we really do it clean, because how many days are left in session? Like 2 weeks? 2 weeks of session? And, I'd hate for the Senate Democrats to have to miss their conference up at Mackinac Island while we're figuring this out. The more things you add into this negotiation, the longer it's going to drag out. But the most important thing is that we do the House Republicans version, which makes the money available immediately. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you have any comments on the AGDA and all of the lawsuits that are now in allegations and coming out about Fay Dune, and about, do you think that the heat plant will be able to help prevent that in the future?
Yeah, so number one, I'm grateful that Dana Nessel, the Attorney General, acknowledged HEAT and how important HEAT, the Hall Ethics Accountability and Transparency Plan, is in terms of cleaning up a lot of this mess of what occurred in the past. I note that she had a few other recommendations from her investigation of things that maybe could be done to improve this process, to ensure that there's not fraud or abuse in the future. And so we're evaluating those requests. I think they had merit, so we're very carefully looking at those and seeing whether we may need to do some additions to HEAT based on things that she found in her investigation. So that's really helpful. And I would just say that it's absolutely the case that we put HEAT in place because, I saw what was going on around here for a long time, and I said, when I become speaker, we're going to put an end to it. We're going to force disclosure of the pork spending. We're going to force them to put their name on it. We're going to make them have it apply to their district. We're going to stop the for-profit corporations. We're going to make it reimbursement-based so that you don't just spend the money. You don't just get the money. You got to justify the expense before you get to spend the money. And I think we got rid of a lot of the bad ones, really. So I think absolutely because of heat, government is more transparent, accountable, and ethical. That's the whole point. The Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan. It made government more ethical, accountable, and transparent, and it's saving the taxpayers a lot of money in waste, fraud, and abuse. Go ahead.
Is the House considering the whole resolution or any other legislation that would change the way that university boards are like cheated from an election process and appointment process?
Yeah, so I know Governor Engler and Governor Blanchard have been proposing something like that. We do not have a plan to take that up at this time.
Another question. Have you ever placed a bet on a prediction market? And do you think House members and other lawmakers should be able to do that?
No, I've never placed a bet on a prediction market. I don't know that politicians shouldn't be able to do it. I guess I haven't contemplated that, but certainly they shouldn't be using information that they gain in their positions to give them a benefit in a prediction market. I'd have to think about that a little more. I know, like at the federal level, we've seen they've had some problems with insider trading. At the federal level, I know there's a lot of circumstances where members of Congress are getting information that has a much bigger national level of impact. And you've seen, at least in the case of insider trading, they're getting pretty big benefit from that. I mean, you look, how many of these guys go to Congress, they're not very well off, and then they're very wealthy when they leave office. They're not like Lawrence. Lawrence was very wealthy before he came to the legislature, but most of these guys, they run for office to get rich. And so I know at the federal level, there's that. I'd have to think about it, the state level, like what fact patterns exist where there are things that are going on in these prediction markets that would have an impact for us. I'd have to think that through. I'm not extremely familiar with the prediction markets, except that I know most people are using the prediction markets instead of the sports betting tools. Remember Governor Whitmer wanted to raise the tax on sports betting to like 25 cents a bet, like Illinois. Well, people are moving from that and they're using the prediction markets. And that was one of the reasons that she wasn't going to have the tax windfall she thought on that deal. So these prediction markets are much more commonly used. But I'm not as familiar with the fact patterns that would affect a state legislator, so I'd have to look at that. But I do think that it would be unethical for a legislator to use information they receive in a meeting and then use that and place a bet on a prediction market and make money. That should not be allowed. So I'll think a little bit more about that, but that's really helpful. And I did see one of your stories, I think Gongwer, I don't know this person's name because it's different in every article, but this reporter from Gongwer that seems to change her name a lot, she got a letter from one of the departments that they put out a notice that said, I think the state employer put out a notice that said state employees cannot use prediction markets based on information they have to make money. I think that was a good thing for her to be on top of. I don't usually have a lot of nice things to say about Lisa, is it Eslin Olson? I don't like her that much, but that was a good one that she came up with, and it's a good reminder for us all as we're looking at our ethics policies and how to change them. So, yep. But the key there is I've never used a prediction market, not yet.
Tomorrow, there's a bipartisan plan in the House Government Operations Committee. It's a housing plan to
Oh, yeah.
accessory dwelling units. Dover is the sponsor on that. I was just kind of curious where you stood on that package and what is going on with the big property tax.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the property tax, you know, we're continuing to move forward and build consensus. I'd really like to see people across Michigan get significant property tax relief. Our plan that gets rid of the state property tax would save them $900 a year on average. Our plan to take the benefits that the utilities get from property tax cuts and force them to refund that all to the ratepayers, that would wipe out the last 3 years of rate increases from the utilities. It would force them to cut their rates by $1 billion a year. That's a huge deal. That would give the average ratepayer a $250 a year savings on their utility bills. Those are going to be huge things. So we're working through that. We're building consensus. I'm hopeful we'll have a vote very soon. And then as we're moving forward on the zoning regulations, you know, one of the things we see is a lot of these local governments are out of control. They're creating all kinds of zoning policies that make it impossible to build affordable housing. And by affordable housing, I mean housing that people can afford. You know, affordable housing is becoming like a political buzzword. And I'm not using it that way. I'm saying the local governments are causing it to be impossible to build houses that anyone can afford. That's what they're doing. And so when the local governments are out of control, then we have to look at their policies and say, look, we've got to give them better guidance here so that they're not driving up the cost of housing. I mean, their crazy regulations are adding about $90,000 to the cost of every home in this state that's built. It's crazy. So there were some things in that package that I think that we have to be collaborative and we have to listen to our local government leaders about. There was something in there that would allow for trailer parks to be built everywhere. We're gonna fix that. So, you know, part of having the public hearings, which Brian Begold is doing a great job of in the Government Operations Committee, you get the feedback, and we'll make some adjustments. We're going to get rid of the part about they can just build these trailer parks wherever they want. That never made any sense. So we'll make some fixes, and then my hope is we'll see them move through the Government Operations Committee very quickly. We'll bring them through the floor, and we'll get them through the House. And you heard that Governor Whitmer, this is one of those issues where there's a lot of alignment, and I think that you could see this get done. You have Governor Whitmer that's also interested in addressing out-of-control regulations in housing. And we have a lot of great local governments that do a really good job, but there's some really out-of-control ones, and that's why this package is needed. And you look, you see a lot of highly respected organizations like Americans for Prosperity. You see the home builders, the realtors, a lot of highly respected groups that are fully supportive of getting rid of these out-of-control regulations from the local government. So we're moving on that. And just to, I guess, to pivot, just to pivot back a little bit on property tax. You know, I really believe that we will get a deal in this state budget that gives people property tax relief, and that's going to be one of the most important components of this budget negotiation. Will be giving people property tax relief. And I'm very hopeful that the Democrats will see the need for property tax relief. And I do not accept the arguments that these legislative Democrats are making. So I would compare it to the conversations we had about roads last year. When we were moving roads, the Democrats in the House would find all of these reasons to oppose it. They would say, well, we don't know where the money's going to come from, and they're not going to fund this, and this is going to lose money, and all that. Well, what they're doing is they're trying to obstruct and block, and they're trying to protect Winnie Brinks and the Senate. Because they know once we move it out of the House chamber, that's going to start putting a lot of pressure on the legislative Democrats to act. And ultimately, I think the people of Michigan can be assured that in order to get a balanced deal that gets Governor Whitmer's signature, you're going to need a balanced proposal. So you're going to get major property tax relief, and you're also going to make sure schools and local governments end up fine in the deal. So, you know, these crazy arguments from the legislative Democrats, I hope you see this. I was talking to Tim Skubik about this the other day. I mean, how many years has that guy been doing this? 50 years? And how many times has he heard the Democrat politicians make this same argument? You know, I would think at some point the reporters would get smart to this, like, wow, someone is trying to move something bold that will make a big difference for the people of Michigan, that will greatly lower their property taxes. And then all these other establishment people, like the Democrat legislators, they throw up all of these very, very afraid, crazy arguments, and they're always the same arguments about schools and local governments and, you know, health and human services. And then when the disruptive figure pushes it through, none of that stuff ever happens. And you know what? The people complaining about it, they vote yes in the end. And so we could just stop this pageantry and say, look, thankfully we have Speaker Hall, someone who's a disruptive figure, who's trying to transform property taxes and lower property taxes for the people of Michigan and reshape our tax structure to have a much more fair tax structure so people can afford a home, people want to live in Michigan. And you know what? In divided government, we'll get a deal, and it'll be balanced, and they'll all vote for it, and then no one will say, these people spent the first 99% of this process trying to kill it, and then on the last day, they voted yes, and they took the credit. Anyone else? Hey, in the back, yeah, go ahead.
Can you speak on the energy bills that passed yesterday?
Yeah, so yesterday was a great day here in the Michigan House. We passed significant energy reform. One of the things that I hear most from people in our communities is how their energy bills are too high. People are unhappy about all the windmills and solar panels they're trying to shove everywhere. I get it. We have one of those in my backyard in Richland where they're trying to build solar panels. We want people to have a voice. We want local communities to be able to have a voice. We want them to have a say in these decisions. We don't want the Whitmer administration just to be able to force windmills and solar panels on everyone. And these wind and solar projects and these mandates that require all wind and solar by 2040, this is greatly increasing cost for Michigan residents on their energy bills. So what we're doing is we're repealing the wind and solar mandates. We're forcing the utilities to roll back their rates by $1 billion, which is going to put $250 back in the pockets of every ratepayer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to focus on reliability and affordability. We're going to stop all this political stuff, and we're going to focus on affordability and reliability with the new modern energy law. I was really pleased to see a bipartisan vote. You saw even some Democrat support for, you know what, the Democrats screwed this up with their wind and solar mandates, banning fossil fuels. It's driving up the cost of energy bills. You know, we should have never taken away local control. That's what the Democrats are realizing. And you're seeing even Democrat support for repealing that wacky Democrat energy law that's growing, that's increasing costs and forcing local communities to take wind and solar panels that they don't want. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Elena.
I wanted to ask more about the coordination yesterday. Do you have any concern that would affect how the legislature issues grants, even if they are done through heat? One of the things we were saying was that the stadiums would have statewide benefit. Are
Right.
you concerned that could affect other?
Yeah, so we put on our form for HEAT, the Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan, that they must describe the public purpose. And the reason for that is Michigan's Constitution requires, essentially, I believe it's a 2/3 vote, if the project they're asking for on a sole source contract does not have a public purpose. And in this case, they're explaining that means public purpose, benefit to everyone, right? So I think Judge Godola got it right. Historically, courts have interpreted this, I think, inaccurately, and they've given broad, they've used the term public purpose basically has no meaning. It's like anything has a public purpose. And that's one of the things, I would say these kind of out of control court interpretations, kind of judicial activist judges that take public purpose and turn that into the widest definition possible. And I thought what Judge Godola did was correct. It should be this way. So, if this continues to be the court position as we go through the budget, then we're going to apply that where if it has a true public purpose, then it'll be a majority vote. But if it's actually truly a narrow purpose, we'll probably seek to remove those. And if there is, for some reason, something that has a limited public purpose, then it would be subject to a higher threshold vote. I think that's right. We really want these pork spending projects to be more rare than they were in the past. I mean, when the Democrats had control, it was $1 billion, $2 billion. We're still totaling it all up. You saw in the House budget, it was much more limited than that. And it was focused mostly on bridges and roads and things that we thought had a public purpose. And, with this opinion by Judge Godola, it gives us even more to think about as we're interpreting public purpose. He did a really great job on that opinion. I give him a lot of credit. Anything else? All right, well, we'll probably call it a day, but thank you to the press. Great to be with you. I hope this was very helpful with Selfridge and heat, and I look forward to seeing your upcoming reporting, all right, and panel appearances. Thank you. All right.